My name is Bill Schuette, and my mom, Esther Schuette, later Esther Schuette Gerstacker, and Carl Gerstacker were part of the original group that brought leaders from across the community to help form the Midland Foundation.
Well, Carl and Esther, of course, it wouldn't have come without them. I mean, they had the background of community foundations. They knew what they wanted, and they'd seen how it had benefited Cleveland. And they wanted it to benefit Midland, and so they really worked hard on it. It wouldn't have happened without them.
51 years ago, there was a party at the Midland Country Club. Mom and Carl invited business and civic leaders from across the community of Midland to come to a cocktail party at the Country Club to meet with leaders of the Cleveland Foundation that was formed back in, I think, 1911, 1912, something like that. And so Carl, with his business connections with Dow and Cleveland and all of that, invited them to come visit Midland and to have Midland leaders hear and learn about the value of a community foundation where it's open to anybody and everybody can participate and be an investor. And 50 years later, it's been the foundation's had huge impact, and I think that's really the key.
Midland's a great place, but there's always room for growth and change, and as long as there are interested people in an organization like this, things will develop. It represents all the good there is in the community and helps to promote it. It's a marvelous organization.
Well, Mary, we both have talked about a little bit of the history of the foundation, its orientation and creation and all of that. Let's have a fun little game here. We'll talk about the 15 original trustees. One of the first trustees was Ann Smock. You remember Ann?
Oh, I do remember Ann, yes. And it was a loss when she moved away.
Yes.
She was always a contributor to the community, and she was just a joy to be around.
And her husband, Sid, was a doctor.
Yes.
And so for those historians who may be watching this, if you go out to Tittabawassee River Road, there's a beautiful overlook on the Tittabawassee River, and there's a little plaque that this property was donated by Sid and Ann Smock.
Oh, I don't even think I knew that.
Barney Lorimer.
He was head of the hospital.
He was head of the hospital, so he would have been like Lydia Watson and Terry Moore.
And his wife, Mim, had the most gorgeous voice, and she was such a delight.
Mm-hmm. Here's one. This is my favorite. Esther Schuette Gerstacker.
Oh.
What do you remember about my mom?
We had such fun together. I mean, she was a delight, and she welcomed me into the foundation, and we worked well together.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell us about the trip to Cleveland and the elevator.
They wanted me to see be a little more aware of how the foundation started and its beginnings, and so they wanted to take me to Cleveland because, of course, that's where it started. But we were in the basement, and we couldn't get out.
You were stuck in the elevator.
Yes, and so we kind of looked at each other and said, well, now what do we do next? And I cannot tell you what we did.
But you got out.
But we did get out.
I imagine somebody pounded, and Carl or your late husband Brock or something came and rescued you in some fashion. How about Ethel Troon? Remember, she was part of the Gerstacker Foundation.
Right.
Great example of generational leadership from Ethel to Dick Hazelton, Bobby Arnold, Kim Bashevsky. What do you recall of Ethel?
Oh, she was a lady, and she just was.
Yes,
she was amazing.
Joe Temple Jr., he was of the 15. Joe and Mac Whiting were the Dow Chemical relationship leads, and Joe had a big job at Dow Chemical. Joe
right,
Temple?
He certainly did.
Yeah, Joe and Ann. He was an exceptional guy. Oh, here's a good one. Jim Kendall. What do you remember about Jim Kendall? J.A.K., James A. Kendall. We refer to him in the law firm.
Right. Well, he was just always instrumental in the foundation. It's what I remember about him.
Jim was a local guy, went to school privately in Midland, then went to law school, worked for Dow in the legal department for a while, then formed his own firm with Gil Curry. And he was very patient with me. I was supposed to start twice at the law firm, but postponed it twice because I was doing politics across the country. So he was nicer to me, more gracious than I deserved. And his wife Toonie, wonderful. And Jim Kendall had a great voice. He was a singer. If you you could Christmas carol with Jim Kendall, you were fortunate. James Rood, he was a
judge, wasn't he?
He was a judge, civic leader, former prosecutor as well.
Was he?
And so he was part of that 15. Okay, John Reeker. Tell me what's your reaction about John?
John was a dear friend. We had a lot of good times through the years.
Well, he did so much. He was my employer. I was his lawn boy, and boy, he paid well. And they had iced tea at the house, and at 3 o'clock, if you'd sneak in there and watch a little bit of Days of Our Lives. But other than that, I worked very hard there. But he was a skilled lawyer, and he and Ranny, they were a force. I mean,
yes.
Ranny was very much out front in the community in many different ways, and active in politics and philanthropy. But John Reeker, he was a really skilled guy and a beautiful heart. Julius Blasey. And Julius was a scrappy guy on the city council, mayor of the city of Midland, and also those Blasey boys. He taught them how to skate.
They were skating. That's what I remember about the skating with the Blazeys.
Yeah, and a great family with a marvelous history. All right, Julius J. Grossberg.
Oh, he was one of a kind. J. Grossberg was. He had that wonderful store downtown. He knew everybody. Everybody knew him.
That's true.
And it's what Risha.
Risha was his wife. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They just were a wonderful couple.
Jay had the clothing store, Jay's Menswear.
Yes.
And he served on the Gerstacker Foundation as well. He and Carl Gerstacker were great friends.
They were. I remember that.
And always fun to be around him. Okay, Macaulay Whiting. He and his wife Helen Dow Whiting jump-started this Midland Foundation with a $500,000 gift and grant that really primed the pump, so to speak.
How wonderful.
Max, now deceased, great guy, and his son Mike is a wonderful fellow as well, and active on the Herbert H. and Grace A. Dow Foundation. So some history there. All right, here's a good one. Ned Arbery.
Oh.
Ned was a tall and part of the A.S. Arbery insurance family and team, and married Honey.
And what?
Married Honey Frizzell,
yes.
Right? I think I've got that right. And very nice guy. When Ned Arbery called you, you took the call and did what he said. So.
Oh, absolutely.
I got that one. Slim Rumpel, remember Slim?
Oh yes, he was the newspaper man.
He was the newspaper man. You bet. And big hulking guy.
Yes.
And but he was kind of slim, but tall.
But they had that men's club up in the same place where the foundation's office was. So.
Oh yeah. So the history of that is on McDonald Street.
Yes.
There were some law offices, and the Midland Foundation's first offices were there. But there also was kind of a coffee klatch that Carl and Jay and other folks would go to have their cup of coffee.
People who ran the community.
Yes, go there at 10:15. Yeah, so that was kind of cute. O. James Clark.
Oh, James. He was principal at Dow High School.
That's right. Yeah, and Jefferson as well. And then when they built Dow High, then James Clark, Jim Clark went over to Dow.
And his wife Jill was a very good friend of mine, and she died much too young.
That's true, yeah. And then Roy Goethe, Dr. Goethe, whose son Mark, still active in medical practice, and Allison, their family.
I met them on the highway. Don't ask me why on the highway or where we were. They were just moving to Midland.
Mm-hmm.
They hadn't even been here yet. And then they moved in around the street from me.
Well, you've been an ambassador for Midland, that's to be sure. Well, that's Neely and Schuette, 15 trustees, 50 years of the Midland Area Community Foundation. And as I say, if you get your fantasy foundation ticket, put Mary on the top of that. It's been fun to talk with you, Mary. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
You bet.